Welcome to 60 Skills. Why learn the subvariants of Earth energy? In this course, we will be covering the letters B, F, I, O, and P from Franz Bardon's Kabbalah. As a practical matter, these are all subvariants of Earth energy. We will not be covering the letter R. That will be covered in the fire energy course for reasons that will be spoken about later. Okay. So why study these different subvariants of Earth energy? In theory, by just being able to generate Earth energy in its purer form, and then selectively keying into different aspects of it, you can learn how to do this. As a practical matter, learning how to tune your attention and energy to a specific part on that band of energy that makes up Earth energy greatly enhances your ability to get things done. While we will have readings on all of the letters in a moment, from a basic standpoint, the letter B deals with polarity, particularly volting, if you're familiar with that technique. The letter I deals with the ability to move energy from a more subtle to more physical and back state of energy, as well as memory and remembrance. The letter F deals with establishing the quadrupolar magnet, or what some would call equilibrium, by virtue of using gravity to pull everything else into balance. The letter O deals with lawfulness and judgment, and the letter P deals with establishing a temple atmosphere. So these are all good reasons to learn these subvariants of Earth energy. Now, as mentioned earlier, the letter R is not covered in this course, even though some people associate it with Earth energy. It is more a combination of earth and fire, and as a practical matter that is not well understood by many people, it is also a backdoor to the angelic realm. As such, it is much more of a fire letter and will be covered under that part of the curriculum. Additionally, by studying these subvariants of earth energy, it greatly enhances the development of your fascia, ligaments, and tendons within your body. Because while Earth energy approaches that from one specific angle in its purer form, these subvariants hit different bands of that. And by progressively working with these, it will enhance your overall ability to work with energy and more subtle forces. So these are all good reasons to study the subvariants of Earth energy. Let us begin. Welcome to 60 Skills. We will now discuss the requirements for the course on learning the variants of Earth energy. If you're following the 60 Skills curriculum, you will first want to have taken the course on the 4 elements and the Build the Ball course in order to learn how to manipulate subtle energy directly. As a practical matter, if you are already familiar with 3-part concentration from a practice such as Tibetan Buddhism or another esoteric system, and you have the ability to sense subtle energy with your hands, you'll have no problem with this course. And by 3-part concentration, what I mean is the ability to hold a color, sound, and sensation in a sphere above the head and to stream it down through you. Now, if you've completed more advanced parts of the 60 Skills curriculum, there's a lot more you can get out of this course. But as a fundamental manner, you need to be able to generate earth energy on your own via the 4 elements and have the ability to touch energy with your hands. Equipment-wise, there really isn't any, although a timer of one kind or another is extremely handy. Additionally, you will want a quiet place in order to practice this, although over time you will be able to do this on your own, basically anywhere you care to. So that covers the requirements for this course. Be well. Welcome to 60 Skills. We will now discuss posture and the need to counterbalance when utilizing earth energy. All right, why is posture so important when working with earth energy? Well, you're working with gravity. And while this may be more subjective than objective, the fact of the matter is if you're in a seated or standing posture for any length of time while generating large amounts of earth energy, your spine is going to feel it. So your seated or stationary posture or asana or whatever you're using to support your body needs to be especially well developed. You need to be able to hold this in the proper frame of motion. So for basic purposes, you need to be able to spread the back, so pull from the base of the skull to the base of the spine, opening the spine up. You need to be able to pull the joints open, and you need to be able to control the position of your chin tuck. Additionally, I highly recommend keeping the tongue on the roof of the mouth or behind the two front teeth when practicing this. Energy surges with earth energy do in fact happen, but they tend to be quite explosive when they do and frequently resemble Kundalini type behavior. So for this reason, stay safe and keep your tongue up. Now, if you care to use a different posture, such as a standing posture or a more complicated asana, just make sure you're holding the spine in a neutral position as well as the neck, because particularly as you sit in that position for any length of time, it's very natural for people to lose the proper plane of motion. And when you finally come out of that state of trance, you will feel it. Trust me from personal experience, I just want to save you some pain here. All right, let's talk briefly about the need to counterbalance. If you're doing too much earth energy and it becomes unbalanced within your body, you tend to take on a state of melancholy or a state of inactivity. This is not healthy for both physical and mental reasons. The natural counterbalance to working with earth energy is in fact air energy. Now there is a rub. If you practice with earth energy first and then with air energy, you're not going to get much out of the air energy, because as these forces equalize within the body, that floating sensation you're supposed to be generating kind of goes away. So what I highly recommend is that you alternate workings. One day you do earth with air, then the next day you do air and then earth, because that first element you work with will generate more of an ability with that element. Now, that being said, many of us, for reasons of time, do work with one element exclusively for a few days or a week or so in a row. Just be aware that when it comes time to counterbalance this for whatever reason, that air element is what you want to use to counterbalance with earth element. And this is true of all the different earth element subvariants, just keeping in mind that some are subjectively heavier than others. So I just wanted to let you know that about working with elements and the need to counterbalance. Likewise, if you're working with fire, the counterbalance is water. If you're working with water, the counterbalance is fire. Akasha is a slightly different subject, but in general, you want to do a lot of vital breathing or generate a lot of vital force. That's all I really have for this section. Train hard and be well. Welcome to 60 Skills. We will now have some short readings on the letter B. According to Franz Barton from his seminal work, Key to the True Kabbalah. In the Akasha principle, the letter B indicates the perception of universal life. It also indicates polarity in all forms of existence. It gives you the mastery of the plus and the minus. At the mental level, this gives power over the electric and magnetic fluids in all spheres and planes, to include life and death and the power to change any fate. However, you will only do this with the approval of divine providence and be mindful of the effects of karma. Astral. This will allow you to call forth magico-kabbalistic volts to charge kabbalistic talismans and bring about sexual magical effects. Everything that is connected to polarity is governed by this at the mental level. Matter. B controls all laws of polarization. It also deals with the electric and magnetic fluids in the physical world. It will also give you the ability to remedy any disharmony in the human body. In other words, to cure any disease. And to charge the appropriate remedies Kabbalistically. It will also give you the ability to control life and death. Now, from initial experiences with the Kabbalah by Rorden Phobos and Bob Smith. The letter B. Violet color, low tone, sensation of heaviness and gravity. It is definitely an earth letter. Akasha, it governs perception of universal life and polarity. The mental level, the electric and magnetic fields. The astral level, volts and polarity. The physical material level, electric and magnetic fluids. First session, 21 Akashic, 62 mental, and 132 astral recitations. First, I sit down in my wicker chair, read through the Akashic, mental, astral, and physical concepts for the letter. Then I reread Barden's short writing on the characteristics of the single letter key for B to further focus my program. I project out into the Akasha and immerse myself into the cool and dark energy. Everything begins to dissolve away. I perform my recitations in the Akashic level, then move into the mental level, and finally down into the astral. Upon entry to the astral, I see a flickering violet light that gradually stabilizes. Instead of projecting into a nature scene, I am standing upon a metallic bridge of some sort. In front of me is a giant sphere supported on a pillar that drops downward without a bottom in sight. Electricity is arcing off the sphere over and over again. In front of this is a creature that looks something like one of the Spy vs. Spy cartoon characters. He is launching volt after volt into the space above him with an almost maniacal intensity. He is mumbling something as he does this that I cannot make out. I assume this is the guardian of the realm. To my left and right, the bridge extends for a while before it ends in another sphere. I try to walk to this. At some point, I am pushed back towards the center. I try this a few times in both directions before I give up. The spheres appear to have some kind of doorway in front of them, but it hurts to look at them too closely or for too long. As I am back in the center of the bridge, I begin to notice how oppressive the gravity of the place is. Additionally, the energy of the letter B seems to build to a crescendo before discharging. In this, it appears to be unstable, like some kind of capacitor-based discharge. The voice of the guardian picks up again, and this time I can pick out some of what he is saying. He is talking about the role of the conversion of vitality into the energies of the electric and magnetic. The gravity is getting heavier, and the voice of the guardian is drowned out in a rush of noise. I lose concentration and drop out of the meditation. Everything hurts. I have been performing a single letter a day for the past few days. My body is starting to pay for it. I walk around for about half an hour, stretching out my legs, and drink some water. Second session. Recitations performed, 279 astral. I project back out into the Akasha and immediately drop into the astral. I catch the flickering violet light and shoot back towards the bridge. The guardian there says something about losing me earlier. He goes on to explain how to use gravity as a kind of slingshot to project a volt. He also says that my volting is terrible and needs a lot of work. First, he explains that I must generate the letter in question, input electrical fluid, then input magnetic fluid. I see a drawing of what looks like an arrowhead with a left electrical side and right magnetic side. Something reminds me that as I am left-handed, this is the correct polarity. I assume in a right-handed person, this would be reversed. Finally, the guardian explains that I should use gravity to dip the constructed volt and slingshot it into space. All the while, I keep the issue I have in mind. At this point, I go shooting out of the space back into my body. I am cooked and done for the day. Practice advice on the letter B. The letter B is about polarization and as such has a relationship to the electromagnetic fluid and vitality life force. Frequently manifests during Qigong practice in the Asian systems. In this context, it tends to build and then spark off the body. If anything, it frequently becomes too electric in nature and can get out of hand easily. It is fairly unstable and tends to follow a rhythm of peaks and valleys. This concludes our readings on the letter B. Welcome to 60 Skills. We will now begin our practice of the letter B. Right eye, violet color, heaviness and gravity, low tone, perception of universal life and polarity, electric and magnetic fluids, volts and polarity, polarization, electric and magnetic fluids. Again, that is Akasha, mental, astral, vital. We will perform 3 minutes at each level to include the whispering of astral and the chanting of vital, followed by 5 minutes of streaming. You should perform this meditation 2 to 3 times at a minimum before practicing on your own. Let us begin. Set your timer. Violet, heavy colored energy in a ball above the head, low tone, internally making the sound buh. Stream the energy down through you. Make sure your posture is appropriate. Okay, feel the energy slip down into your mental sphere. Feel it pull your mental body open. Violet color, heaviness. Internally, you hear the B sound. Okay. Feel the energy begin to sink down into your astral body. Again, center this on either your heart center or solar plexus, your choice. Enter a slight magnetic body posture, spreading the back, pulling from the top of the head and the base of the spine, pulling the joints open. You can use the edge of your chair or your knees. Chanting softly in a whisper so that if someone is more than 3 feet or 1 meter away from you, they cannot hear you. Violet color, heaviness and gravity. Astral breathe this energy in and out. Move your attention to your lower abdomen. Assume a hard magnetic body posture, feet torqued in, pulling from the edge of your chair or your knees, spreading the back from the back of the neck to the base of the spine, tongue on the roof of the mouth, and vibrate the sound through your ligaments and tendons. Violet color, B sound, heaviness and gravity. B, 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 Now return your attention to above your head. Stream the energy down through you from the top of the head down into the floor. Violet color, heaviness and gravity, the sound silently. From the ball above head down through your body, washing away all sensations, sounds, colors, and phenomena that have been brought up. Come back to yourself. Remember to clear out properly, involving pore breathing from above the head all the way down into the floor, and to journal your notes. This concludes the exercise. We will now have a reading from Franz Barden's Key to the True Kabbalah on the letter F. In the Akasha principle, the letter F represents lawfulness and harmony of all visible worlds. You will be able to recognize the lawfulness as the most perfect harmony. This is analogous to the lawfulness of any idea. Mental. This represents the unification and dependency of the four fundamental attributes of the spirit, namely the will, intellect, feeling, or life, and consciousness in its entirety. You understand lawfulness in all the kingdoms, and you are able at will to make these fundamental attributes of the spirit within yourself and others. At an astral level, you are able to recognize and control the mysteries of the tetrapolar magnet and the sphere of influence of the four elements in the astral. You can also master any character trait, any virtue, or its respective element. Also, magical equilibrium will become completely clear to you, and all universal laws. The material level, the magic quadrature of the circle, the tetrapolar magnet is revealed. You are able to learn this in recognition to the human body and apply it, but also into relationships with intellectual knowledge, physics, or metaphysics. You also master the ability to practice the mystery of the tetragrammaton, the Yod, He, Vav, He, with all methods and systems that require the use of this magnet. Now a reading from Initial Experiences with the Kabbalah. Letter F. Light green, high-pitched tone, heaviness and gravity. Kashically, it represents lawfulness and harmony. Mentally, it represents the four mental attributes. Astrally, astral equilibrium. Physically and materially, the quadrupolar magnet. First session, 31 Akashic, 63 mental, and 408 astral recitations. Again, in the mental realm, something reaches out to me. This time it is less distinct. It is something about balancing or expanding will, intellect, feeling, and consciousness. As I transition from the mental to astral, I receive a flash picture of what appears to be a four-sided iron cross. Will is at the top, consciousness is on the right, feeling at the bottom, and intellect on the left. I go slamming down into the astral as the characteristic of gravity becomes more coherent in this letter. I seemingly crash land in a heavily wooded area. On the horizon, I see a tall spire with a sphere at the top glowing with light green energy. Nearby is a house made of sticks. I walk inside and I do not like it. Something feels off. I walk out. I meet an old man in white robes who appears to be the guardian. He begins to talk about elemental balance in terms of needing to grow versus taking from one to add to another. Sage advice, to say the least. Something about yogis routinely taking the second route and in doing so limiting themselves is in a trap. We sit by a nearby lake and watch whale-type creatures and beaver swim by the river linked to it. The location has whitish rocks and sand, which seem to be the departure from working with letters as the color of the environment tends to match the color of the letter. The guardian goes on to mention that vitality provides a basis for the elements and vice versa. So cultivation of vitality is always important, and practice should never occur at its expense, as this is also a trap. Later we go for a walk and approach a shed. The guardian tells me that it stores weapons that are destructive to equilibrium. This seems to be important, but I do not go inside. I suddenly feel sleepy or tired and had to return to my body. The last piece of information that comes up is to use the letter F before establishing equilibrium. The gravity aspect of the letter pulls everything down into place. When I come back into my body, everything hurts. The earth-based letters gave me a pounding. I need to work on my sitting asana to better stack my structure and protect the spine. Practice advice on the letter F. The letter F I do not understand well, so my notes on this may not be coherent, but hopefully provide guidance to someone who is working with this letter. The letter F is the lightest of the earth-based energies. Its primary higher purpose is to generate equanimity via silence and consciousness. At a mental level, it balances the four elemental pillars and when charged can lead a practitioner to God's consciousness. The letter F floats your mental body, pulls it apart, and restructures it. In essence, the quadrupolar magnet is the spirit. The earth element represents equanimity, the air element insight, and the fire element one-pointed focus or samadhi in yogic terms. Water represents sensation and feeling. The letter itself is very peaceful. It tends to balance a practitioner out and provide a kind of physical peace. This concludes our readings. Let us begin. Welcome to 60 Skills. We will now have a reading on the letter I from Franz Barden's The Key to the True Kabbalah. In the Akasha, this represents karmic law, which is the law of cause and effect. Likewise, evolutionary law of all created things is covered as well. I represents the 10th letter of the alphabet, and the number 10 represents the number 1 in its highest form in Akasha. The mental level, it governs memory, remembrance, and consciousness, and allows you to control it completely. Furthermore, you may strengthen or weaken the conscience of a human being and the subtlest form of divine providence depending upon the use of the letter. In short, everything involving memory and conscience in the mental plane is understood by this letter. Astral. The letter vibration corresponds to the astral matrix with all its functions. The astral matrix is the link between the material body and soul or astral body. It is the so-called principle of life. It is also known that this is kept alive by breathing. With the help of this letter vibration, the Kabbalist is in a position to completely control the breath with all its aspects and methods of application. Likewise, you can restore the breath to a body that is already dead by banishing the astral matrix back into the dead body and reuniting body and soul. Again, this is subject to karma. Materially, it governs all laws of analogies between the micro and macrocosm, everything that has shape, measure, number, and weight. So this also allows you to control the weight and gravity of something. And you may do this in all fields and all laws. From Initial Experiences with the Kabbalah by Rorden Phobos and Bob Smith. The letter I, light opal, bright rainbow color, lowest of all possible tones, E sound, a rumbling earthquake type of sound representing heaviness and gravity. Akashically, it represents cause and effect or karma, mentally, memory, remembrance, and conscience. Astrally, the astral matrix. Physically, materially, analogy. First session, 12 Akashic, 63 mental, and 406 astral recitations. As with most of the earth-oriented letters, I go screaming out of the Akasha and into the astral level as the gravity of the letter takes over. In this case, I come slamming down into a cave. Within the cave lies a giant skeleton, seemingly mummified and belonging to something long dead. Crystals or perhaps jewels lie at points along the bones of the skeleton. In a strange way, I seem to understood that this is a type of warning as to the after effect of mummification of the astral body for purposes of life extension. While you may indeed live longer, the required price seems unpleasant. I turn and walk out of the cave into my own astral matrix. The enormity of this is difficult to describe. The astral body suspends itself in space, and I can see stars in the distance. At the edge of my vision, I see a huge crystal spire with a glowing sphere lighting the place. The guardian is difficult to see, but I am aware he is nearby, and he begins to speak. He says to reinforce the astral matrix by drawing Akasha in using the letter E and converting it into the substance of the astral matrix. Then stabilize the matrix with vital energy. The second part is very important. The relationship between the tissues are the fascia is to the astral and mental matrices as the body is to the soul and spirit. It is the difference between growing bone, tendon, and muscle. Elemental dissolution likewise accelerates with age, but mummification of the astral body largely slows or stops magical development. The last part seems confusing. It is unclear if the process stops development or merely brings it to a crawl. That particular phrase was spoken or possibly transmitted as a thought form at the same time. It may have been a conceptual translation error for something that no English term exists. I need to ponder this. Many other things come through. Continued warnings about using the letters E and I on the astral mental levels, potentially bringing back the memories of former incarnations, and then over-identifying with them. One potential workaround is to refuse to accept any personal responsibility for the karma of past lives in the present. The use of E and I on the physical level is to greatly enhance strength, particularly via adding it to food, also comes to mind. The letter I in particular comes across as more of a bright rainbow color and can be actively used at the physical level to strengthen the body while lifting weights. It works by drawing more astral substance into the physical. In many ways, the letter I acts as a kind of switchboard for moving energy between the different levels of existence. On that note, it can be used to facilitate physical manifestations of energies if performed before the primary letter. As the Guardian shows me how to reinforce the astral matrix, the setting goes from night to day. I determine this is my consciousness drifting closer to the physical realm than to the astral. After going back and forth with this a few times, I notice my body is beginning to tire from having supported an earth letter this long. I say goodbye to the Guardian, depart, and return my consciousness to my physical body. Everything hurts when I open my eyes. Practice advice on the letter I. The letter Z is the key to feats of athleticism that involve endurance. Then the letter I is the key to activities that involve strength. As was transmitted to me, quote unquote, this is how we bind and move energy between bodies. The letter I lubricates the movement of energy between the Akashic, mental, astral, and physical bodies. If attempting to bring something into form, perform the letter I first and it will ease the transition involved. Additionally, this can be used to suppress cancer and other terminal diseases via binding and compression of the energy, particularly when combined with diet. Note, this does not eliminate the conditions causing the problems. It does, however, buy you time. In Chinese traditional medicine, this is why earth body types do not contract cancer, but frequently suffer from heat-based diseases. To enhance strength, generate the letter I while lifting weights. Only do this using the compound lifts, clean, deadlift, press, and squat. As abnormally strengthening isolation exercises will result in injuries. It transmits additional energy into the physical and results in an increase in strength. As an earth letter, its grounding nature is not particularly useful for endurance sports, although strength endurance as utilized in strongman events might be an exception. Specifically, this works by linking the astral to the physical and stimulating the fascia tissue. It is an earth element with the feeling of physical power in whatever environment you want. Perform this by melting the energy of the letter into the physical first, and the magnetic aspect of the earth element has the effect of lightening the weight you are lifting. Unusual strength is governed by this letter, and professional athletes frequently display this color in their aura. At higher speeds, it tends to vibrate. Finished with your practice, push all this energy into the energy center above your head, as keeping it in the body will make you stiff. To activate, breathe the letter into the astral body and then vigorously dump it into the physical. Over time, it has the effect of binding the astral body to the physical and aids physical manifestation of power. I suspect professional athletes shorten their life spans by binding the astral to their physical bodies and failing to reinforce their astral energy, exclusive of the injuries and drug use involved. This concludes the reading. Let us begin.